But I want to get right into it, bro, because we have a lot to break down. We got the playoffs. Right now, as we're recording, game one of Milwaukee-Miami is underway. It's probably, in my opinion, the most compelling series of the bunch. It's the one that the Vegas line is the tightest. Well, Hawks and Knicks also.
Okay.
But a lot of people have said that one's a coin flip, right? Like a lot of people think Knicks-Hawks could go
Yeah.
either way.
We'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but with this one, you have the defending champion Heat. You have Milwaukee, who have added a lot of new pieces to their team. Rematch of last year. Heat beat them in 5. So there's a lot to digest. This is the most compelling one for me. I think now this is not going to age well because by the time people hear this, they'll know the outcome of game one.
True.
But I'm still going to stay pat with what I said coming into this. I think Milwaukee beats them in 4 or in 5. And the reason why is because you can't base what happened to Milwaukee last year when you're talking about this year, because it's a completely different team that the Bucks are throwing out against the Heat this year.
It's true. I'm a big Chris Middleton fan, but I think it's very safe to say that Drew Holiday's their second best player now. You add him to the bunch. They just run a ton of different actions than they did last year. They have better shooters. They have a lot more reliable guys just when you say, like, can you get your own shot and can you make a shot? Eric Bledsoe last year, terrible. Terrible. There's no other way to put it. Several other of their players just not really ready for the moment. I like a lot of their role players. Like Portis hasn't really been in this position, but he's a dog. He knows how to make shots. Drew Holiday, that goes without saying for him. But I completely agree just that it's the most fascinating series because the Heat, I feel like we all believe the Heat 100% think they're better than the Bucks and that they can beat them.
Sure.
The Bucks did not run away from the matchup. We saw teams in the West run away. Clippers, what can you even say for that? Nuggets, people are these teams feeling a little bit scared about the Lakers. The Bucks did no such thing to get away from the Heat. This is the biggest test, I would say, ever for that team and ever for Giannis, because if you go out in the first round, Bud is fired. There's a ton of self-reflection with Giannis and that core. And if you want to win a championship, you have to win tough series. You have to win tough series not as much just because you need to advance, but because you need to prove to yourself that you're built for this shit. And so this is really what we're coming up to with this Bucks Heat series. And the reason, too, I'm not even too worried just about the fact that we're recording this during Game 1 is because I think oftentimes Game 1 is the feel-out series. What is this team doing when I do this? How can I exploit them here? And so when the teams come back to the drawing board and they look in the film room, like, what did they do here? It changes the tide. And so I think regardless of who wins Game 1, I agree with you that the Bucks are going to come out. But I would say maybe give me Bucks in 6 or 7.
I agree on your ideology of game 1 is when teams it's the feeling out process. Then you go back to the drawing boards. Totally agree with you. I somewhat disagree, though, for this series because I think there's also a mental aspect where if you're Milwaukee, Jimmy Butler didn't play in any of the 3 games that they played this year, right? So Milwaukee, if you drop game 1, it's one of those things where mentally you're like, fuck, man, they got our number when it matters.
It's true.
Right? Because they got dominated last year. I know they lost in 5, but it was like...
Got dominated. Should have been 4.
Should have been 4. So, in theory, totally agree with you. But I think with this one, like, every scenario is different. So, with this one, it's like, if you're Milwaukee, you got to win game 1. Like, you just have to. It sets the tone for the rest of the series. But also, with this Milwaukee team, you also add P.J. Tucker, who he was a guy who was like a borderline journeyman, and then he goes to Houston, and he's like their center. Like, I remember playing against the Warriors. He was grabbing boards off Boogie and Draymond and Looney and all these guys. Like, he was their big, right? And he's so versatile, and that's what I think this team why this team is so unique, because they're so versatile, especially defensively. You mentioned Middleton, Giannis, Tucker. They could all come off screens. Drew Holiday, I always have that picture in my mind because I'm a big Damian Lillard fan. He stole the soul out of that Portland backcourt. Him and Rondo,
Yeah.
when the Pelicans and the Blazers played a couple years ago,
Truly.
just absolutely just stole their soul. So now you have him that you could throw at a guy like, you saw it all last year, bro. Tyler Hero gets going. He has one of those explosive quarters. Duncan Robinson comes out hot. You're like,
Dragic.
Dragic. Now it's like, let's just throw Drew on Tyler Hero now before it gets even crazier. Or like a Duncan where he's like 4 for 5 from 3. Like, nah, none of that shit anymore.
Yeah.
Like, Butler got to beat us. Bam got to beat us. So I think this first game is very, very important for Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, let's say Miami does win, and I think regardless of the regular season success Bud has had, I think Spoelstra has established himself as one of the best coaches in the league. I think he has the advantage here. It's really tricky to see what this game one will be like.
He's the Popovich of the East. I think Spoelstra is going to be able to coach until he doesn't want to.
Yeah, he is. Good point. I mean, even their best player maybe 4 years ago was Josh Richardson.
Yeah.
Now he's a bench player on the Mavericks.
And he kept his job throughout
playing
this.
500.
Yeah.
No, it's really exceptional what he's able to do. It's a great point about the Bucks. If they lose game one, are they built for this? It's going to be an extreme test. I think they can't get too high on the highs. They can't get too low on the lows. I think it's been really awesome to see them do different things. They realized that, we got the 1 seed last year, and we almost were on a historic pace for wins, and it meant absolutely nothing. And so I think they realized that we're going to try different things during the regular season. I am going to be fascinated if they put PJ or Giannis at the 5, and so you're rolling out a lineup of Drew, DiVincenzo, Middleton, Tucker, and Giannis. Everybody can shoot. With the exception of Tucker, everybody can handle the ball. And defensively, the versatility is just crazy. I think Middleton is an underrated defender as well. And I don't see how you can really stop that lineup. I mean, the whole thing last year again with the Bucks and the Heat is that they put Crowder on Giannis. Of course, he can't guard him one-on-one, but Giannis is going to drive to the paint, and they're going to put up a wall. They're going to have Butler and Bam is gigantic, athletic, versatile dude, and Giannis just, there was nothing he could do. It's been really awesome to see them use Giannis a lot as a screener. And just do different things offensively that gets Giannis kind of like on the short roll or just able to make plays, dishing it to the corner. Because if I'm facing the Bucks, just their big three, I don't want any of those three guys shooting the ball. But the fact that now you got a third reliable guy, which they did not have last year, if Bledsoe's shooting the ball, let him shoot it. I don't care. I want him to shoot the ball. But if you have Drew Holiday taking those shots now, it's different. It's completely different. And the Heat were winning a lot of those battles around the margins last year. At some points they were kind of punking the Bucks, but just winning those margins, really can just turn the tide of a series. You go up 2-0 because you won 2 close games. I think those close games now shake out in the Bucks' favor. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. I think the Drew addition has been great because Middleton is not a second guy. Now he's in the role that he should be. And also, I always feel like if you have 2 guys, they need to play different positions on the floor. Mm-hmm. LeBron AD works because LeBron is the point guard for that team, really, right?
Yeah.
Now it works because you have, let's talk about the Nuggets. I know Jamal Murray's out, but why does that work in Denver? Because you have a big and you have a little guy. Mm-hmm. That's how you should build your team, I feel like, in the NBA. Sure. And you're even looking at the emergence of the Knicks this year, right? You have RJ and you have Julius Randle. So that's the way you should have it, I think, if you want to be a serious contender. Because if you have 2 bigs, remember the Pelicans had Cousins and AD? Mm-hmm. It was dope, the 2 Kentucky guys and their boys, but it didn't ultimately work that well.
Yeah, they ended up smacking Portland in that series with Mirotic to the fore. Mirotic now in Spain, doing his thing. But he's a great shooter, and that just worked out perfectly for them. That's true. I mean, Middleton is a great ball handler. He knows how to get his own shot. That's extremely valuable, but he's not a lead guard playmaker. So you're completely right. And even though Drew has not been known in his career as being like a one, as being like a point guard, all three of them, Giannis, Middleton, and Drew, all know how to get their own shot and play make for others. So it really just works out perfectly. And as far as a personality standpoint, this I really like Drew with Giannis. It's I've heard him speak a little bit, I think, on JJ Redick's podcast, just about like having to kind of earn Giannis's respect, even just being on the same team. And I think you're absolutely right about having that small and the big running the show, and gathering chemistry together. You could say Butler and Bam too, even.
Right. Let me ask you this: as we start to transition out of this series, you mentioned it before in passing how if Milwaukee gets bounced in the first round, it has franchise-altering type of consequences, right? Do you start second guessing if you're Giannis? You don't have any assets because you gave them all up to get Holiday in. Mm-hmm. You're going to get rid of the Coach Bud, who led to Giannis winning those MVPs too. His system. He's been a fantastic regular season head coach. I mean, even if you go back to the time when he was with the Hawks being a 1 seed and like being a top 5 seed, dude. The running joke I always used to have with my buddies growing up was, I'd rather compete to win a championship or tank and be in the lottery. I don't want to be the Hawks, who are always like an 8 or 7 seed,
with no superstar,
or borderline 9 seed, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna have the 15th pick in the draft again, or 14th. I'm never gonna get guys like that. Are there exceptions? Yeah, Giannis, middle of the first round, Kawhi, but those are like outliers. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna stick though with the Bucks winning in 4 or 5. I really do think it's gut check time if you're Milwaukee. I like the way their team is made up. I don't think Miami is as good as they were last year. Obviously, no Oladipo as well. A move that, we're talking about things completely different. They probably finish as a higher seed if they had Oladipo, who just got cleared for contact for November. Oof. So that's poor guy, man. I was a big Oladipo fan when he first got to Indiana, being a former Hoosier.
That 7-game series with Bron in 2018.
Yeah. And look, he was like an All-NBA MVP candidate a couple years back. That first full year with the Pacers. So, but I'm going with Milwaukee in 4 or 5. I think a relatively short series.
It's definitely fascinating to hear. I don't think that's conventional. I don't know if conventional wisdom is the right word. I don't think that's the conventional take in the media. So that's really great to hear. Honestly, like the kind of a bold take in that respect. Just like closing comments on the series. The Heat, as much as I don't think it was a fluke, their success last year, it was almost a perfect accumulation of different things. Like
everything fell into place for them. We have to be honest, right? There's you play in the bubble, right? Though Miami does benefit a lot from playing in Miami, the Miami flu, where teams are in South Beach for 4 or 5 days and go out partying. I've talked about it for ages. Like everyone knows about the Miami flu because of the pod if they listen to it. But you have Tyler Hero as a rookie who's not playing on the road in a hostile environment. In a game 3.
No expectations on him last year,
too. Of course. You're playing with house money there.
Crowder, I think I heard on like Zach Lowe's podcast that Crowder shot like 38% from 3, or maybe even better. Like Crowder was just splashing threes. And so you look at some of this, you're like, is there going to be regression to the mean? And you got to think so. I mean, I like Ariza. I love Bam, absolutely. But Dragic has not looked the same last year. And the reason they made the finals is because Dragic was so damn good. And the fact that Robinson and Hero were kind of plug-in, big shot makers, and Crowder was also big shot maker. And then you got your 2 stars, and then Dragic was really a 3rd star. Like, he was playing that well, getting into the paint, dishing the ball. I don't think it's necessarily going to work out the same for them, but, we'll see. That's why we love this thing. And the fact that these 2 teams have seen each other before, and the fact that, like we said, this is a franchise-altering series for the Bucks. I definitely am just captivated by so many different elements of the series. But I'm gonna go Bucks.